Tornadoes ravaged the U.S. South and the Midwest and claimed 74 lives in Kentucky.
United States and China both tried to win ASEAN over.
A small glitch at the Summit for Democracy created big disturbance.
And a continuing story on the flash mob robberies in the U.S.
Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Vying.
And I'm Kathy Zhang.
Yes, indeed, with a heavy heart, we report to you about the most recent death toll from the tornadoes. A horde of tornadoes ripped a catastrophic swath from the Arkansas through Kentucky last Friday. And Kentucky was the hardest hit state. And Governor Abby Beshear said Monday that the death toll from the tornadoes has risen to at least 74. This is another 10 people more than his last press conference. And 109 people are still unaccounted for.
And she said, we expect that this death toll will continue to grow. And with this amount of damage in the rubble, it may be a week or even more before we have a final count on the number of lost lives. Close quote.
And Beshear also said that there are way more than people unaccounted for still than the current estimate of the 109.
Yeah. And more than 1,000 homes were destroyed by the tornadoes. About 26,000 homes were without power, and 10,000 homes and businesses didn't have water as of today, this afternoon. And Kentucky Emergency Management Director Michael Dossett. That's what he said.
And Biden already declared a state of emergency over the weekend in Kentucky, where at least, as we know, 74 people were confirmed to have been killed. The declaration allows FEMA to provide direct assistance and reimburse local authorities for recovery work. And Biden said he will be traveling to Kentucky on Wednesday, which is the day after, to survey the storm damage there. All right, so let's take our focus to Asia, not just Asia and the UK. Actually, let's back up a little bit to more than nearly 1 month earlier. Okay, on the 21st of November. All right, so the ASEAN. Let's say, what's the ASEAN? ASEAN is called an abbreviation for Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Okay, well. They are called ASEAN. And there are basically 10 countries in the Southeast Asia. Brunei and Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Burma and Philippines and Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. Okay, and so recently, China has expanded its trade tremendously since it has joined the WTO. It's the weight that China has in world trade rose from 4% to 13% after nearly 20 years. After 20 years, precisely. And a lot of them has to do with the Asian countries. The trade with them expanded by 85 times. So China, or the CCP, now has a lot of influence and weight over those nations. And those nations are sitting among China and the US and Australia, and then they are trying to figure out where they could go or they should tilt towards. Okay, and on the November 21st, okay, so Asian countries established a partnership of comprehensive strategic partnership with Australia, all right? And you think that may be good news. One day after, on November 22nd, this same Asian country agreed to forge a comprehensive strategic partnership with China. So just one day later, another. And then what just happened is just now, okay? And so in the UK, and then now between December 10th and the 12th, there's this UK-hosted G7, okay? G7 foreign ministers meetings there. And actually they invited the Asian foreign ministers to go there. And indeed, many of them, they went. And then the Secretary of State, Blinken, was there also at the G7 meeting and met with his counterparts from the Asian over there. Okay, so after that, they announced another comprehensive partnership with Asian countries, the G7. And so it's like all three parties, or let's say two parties, the free world and the democratic countries and China, both they're vying for the influence over these 10 countries. Okay, after the G7 meeting, and Blinken will be fly over to Southeast Asia and visit Malaysia and Indonesia and Thailand, a few countries. So as you see, in a matter of just 1 month, Kathy, they established a comprehensive strategic partnership with three parties. Who would be their real partners, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's their partners. But indeed, this tells the essential situation there. If we recall, during the Cold War time, right, the U.S. and the Soviet Union were basically fighting on every ground, every piece of ground all over the world, including Africa, in the Midwest, and Middle East, and also in Africa and in Latin America, and so on and so forth, right? So we don't want to see this, but this is taking shape. And the U.S. or the West and the China, it's just now they are just try to win over, or fighting over the Asian countries to win them over. And to my knowledge, as I report China and Asia matters for nearly 20 years, they are very afraid of CCP or China because CCP is very close. It's a giant and is at your doorstep and have very, very strong trade with them. But in their mind, they like America much better. But America is far, and they are not sure how committed America is in terms of maintaining the stability and providing protection there. So they always waver. They will just waver left and right. What do we do? Where do we go? When do we take side? And so far, it appears that they pretty much try to please everybody, please both sides, and so that they can have certain, how to say, safety or leverage or whatever you call it. So that's the situation, and I think such a situation will continue developing in other parts of the world. This is where our world is heading towards. Whether you like it or not, it's another version of Cold War that is brewing here. All right, now let's talk about a small incident that generated a big wave, a big disturbance at the Summit for Democracy, which was hosted by America, with 110 countries joining, and the CCP was really, really mad about it. And then they jump up and down and condemning it and claiming that China has the real democracy. However you read it, that's their rhetoric. But let's talk about this small incident. What is it?
Yeah, so Taiwan was actually invited to this summit, which was widely praised by the democratic world. But when the representative of Taiwan did her presentation at the second day of the summit, something happened. Okay, so first of all, who was the presenter? Her name is Audrey Tang. He's formerly a minister without portfolio in the Taiwanese government. And so she represented Taiwan to speak on how, what the lessons and the experience that Taiwan can share in regards to how they dealt with the pandemic with the digital, openness. So she in her presentation only about around 5 minutes. So she started with something. Actually, so let me go back. So the moderator's question was, so what are some of the main messages or lessons for Taiwan during the pandemic to share with the rest of the world in terms of the topic about the digital openness. So Tang just shared. In doing so, she showed a map of Asia created by an NGO in South Africa. It's a human rights organization called Civicus, showing Taiwan as the freest country on the continent. So let's just watch this episode, only like less than 1.5 minute, and then we'll see, what happened.
The main message is to work not just for the people, but with the people. Every year, the human rights organization Civicus, with around 20 regional partners, conduct research about freedom and civic space. And Taiwan has been rated as completely open for 3 consecutive years. We're the only Asian country with that distinction, and the sole Asian green light on this year's Civicus monitor. So how do we come so far on this path? The key factor is that the internet in Taiwan has developed alongside democratization. Between the lifting of the martial law in 1987 and the presidential election in 96, we saw the popularization of PCs and the World Web in the span of 10 years. So for Taiwanese people, democracy is like a social technology. It can only be enriched through the joint efforts of all. Therefore, our government insists that broadband is a human right, reducing the cost for civic technologies. Our network infrastructure allows everyone to broadcast live from Jade Mountain, Taiwan's highest peak. We believe that a completely open environment with free speech uncensored is perfect for letting digital democracy flourish. And with our 23 million citizens using the internet as a space for democracy, we fought off the pandemic with no lockdowns and the infodemic with no takedowns. In 2019, when news about the pandemic just started, our pro-social social media platform here allowed timely response to early warnings.
Okay, so that's the part with the map. So do you see anything wrong?
I see perfect fine map.
Okay.
I was just focusing on the speaker.
So actually, after, according to Reuters, after she spoke and showed the map for about 1 minute, her visual, including the map, is gone. Okay, and just momentarily cut off, and then only the audio was left. And then the White House aired a disclaimer reading, any opinions expressed by individuals on this panel are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the views of the United States government. Okay, and
so you don't have that footage.
That's the live feed, and
Okay.
I didn't find it.
Find any version of it.
Right, but this the episode that I showed was from. Eventually, they uploaded the whole summit for the second day, and that's part of it. Obviously, they just restored everything. So, actually, there are, according to Reuters, a source which do not want to, release the name, with some concern, just saying because the White House actually just very concerned about, Taiwan calling it country, and also showing the map with a different color, obviously showing, Taiwan is not part of the China. And according to United States, they have some, the one China policy, the color of the map should be the same. However, some
So
insiders...
that's the difference, right? That's the
see
difference.
the very bright green that represents Taiwan shows really it's the most open civil society.
Okay.
And the red, big red, China, is the most oppressed, closed civil society.
So basically, the difference in the color of that little island, if you can tell where it's Taiwan and the mainland China, that's what prompted White House officials to hide this very map.
They just disrupted for a minute, for a little while.
Okay, and
then
put out
it
a
went
disclaimer.
Back, disclaimer, right? And then they put it back. Then it shows. And then later on, some insiders say, if the color issue only applies to the maps if they are generated by the U.S. government. But this map was generated by a human rights group in South Africa.
Okay.
So what's the reaction later on? The State Department actually called this disturbance as a technical issue and an honest mistake. Okay, and then the State Department just uploaded a full video.
Okay, so basically, there's two ways to read this. Okay, one way is the U.S. government, took the courage and invite Taiwan's representative over 8,000 miles from Taiwan all the way to, not 8,000, 10,000 miles, all the way to the Washington, D.C. I mean, through online, of course, right? This meeting in Washington, D.C., and then in the middle of it, and it's and censor them, okay? Because the color doesn't match, violate the one country, one China country policy that the U.S. foreign, policy formally committed to. This is one way to read it. Another way to read it, this is just a glitch. Somebody panicked. Some bureaucrat panicked behind the scene, and in 1 minute they are able to pull it off, put on the disclaimer, and then remove that disclaimer, put the map back on. Just in 1 minute. Think about what type of flurry that was happening behind the scene.
Yeah, it's very ironic because the topic they are talking about was countering digital authoritarianism.
Yeah, I just want to pause a little bit, ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think this is an intentional censor? This is U.S. is half-hearted in supporting Taiwan, and while their minister is speaking there, just because of the color of that island is different from China, they would just pull off the map and put out a disclaimer saying that it's not our policy. Is U.S. really just half-hearted on supporting Taiwan, and they still don't want to offend CCP or China, precisely CCP, or it's just not honest? No big deal type of mistake. What do you think? Type of your thought there. I'm just curious about how you think before I give you my point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's see. Any comments?
Okay. So, while you're thinking over there, you can always express your point of view. And, my answer is this, okay? To be honest, I think we don't need to make a big deal out of this. Indeed, for the last 2 or 3 decades, the State Department or the White House, those officials, especially those bureaucrats, they were very, very nervous because, when it comes to Taiwan and all other human rights issues with China, CCP officials are very, very adamant and stubborn and rude, okay? So they kind of, allow me to say this, is the fact, okay? It train our bureaucrats, our government officials into learning what is the red line of the CCP and then don't touch it, all right? They train us. But is that right? That should not be right. Taiwan is, we all know, is how to say, is a region that elects its own president and its own Congress and have its own military and so on and so forth. And CCP is just trying to force the whole world and turn their eyes away from Taiwan and define that as a province. And so I think the U.S. government invited Taiwan to the summit is it's sincere, it's for real. But this bureaucrat is just try to making sure everything is correct, create a very, very big incorrect situation.
Yeah, and so actually Taiwan was the only green rating, the bright green rating in Asia by this South African NGO. Okay, so in fact, in contrast, China under CCP ruling appear in the bright red, and I think so it appears we can only suspect in the bureaucrats of the United States federal government, there are people who for one reason or another, just afraid of offending the PRC, but they are just so wrong because the CCP only try to appear. They just bully people, and if you don't see through the surface, you will be just like try to be politically correct. Trying to over a map, you will generate such a panic, right? But it's actually it's not. They have no way to justify such kind of ruling, like they're trying to rule how the United States behave.
Yeah. So just earlier news, as you remember, with the ASEAN country, right? So U.S. literally and the G7 is having this how to say, I won't say clash. It's a very strong competition with the CCP over the countries of ASEAN. But over here, you try to be overly sensitive and overly polite. Don't touch them, even though we're having a very serious competition or a rivalry there in Asia. But over here, we still want to be very, courteous and nice, and we don't want to offend you, type of thing. That's, that's so unnecessary. So I hope the incident will teach the White House, certain officials at the White House or the State Department, I don't know which, a good lesson, okay? Stay strong, stay courageous, and stay righteous, and don't apologize to CCP, which is a very, very bad empire. Now it's threatening U.S. and threatening Taiwan and threatening the world. All right. So how about any feedback?
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion?
Hive, Mecca, and half-hearted. Okay.
Half-hearted, yeah, half-hearted. It's, I don't blame you if you feel that way.
Yeah.
It's just appeared to be so much like that, right? How could you do this? You invite them over, from Asia all the way, through internet.
Talk about democracy and also the digital authoritarianism. Then it just happened in front of everybody's eyes. Although, we have to just report that according to Reuters, Audrey Tang, she, the presenter, she replied that she doesn't believe that it was because of the map. Okay, the Taiwan government.
What's her reading?
Taiwan government, I think their official response was like they were told it is a technical issue. Okay, I think on the level of a diplomats, they don't want to stir much, But the true reason we can only just suspect, right? But the thing is, I think on the other hand, there are probably some of the bureaucrats in the United States government. They were just. It's possible that some people were bought out by the CCP. It's not a secret. And some were just deceived and mistakenly think we should adhere to certain rules. But even later on, the fact that they put it right back on, and also when the State Department fully uploaded the full video with no disruption, because even on their own rule, based on their own rules, this map doesn't violate any regulation, right? It's not a U.S. government generated map.
Yeah, just take a comparison that after former President Trump and won the presidency, he was the president-elect. Somebody just called into Trump Tower in New York and they want to talk to him, and that person is the president of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen. And he took the call compared to this map issue that's very, very politically incorrect. And Trump said, why can I not do that? They bought so much arms from us, billions of dollars. They have a right to talk to me. So that was then compared to now. It's indeed a pretty sharp contrast.
Yeah, we just hope those people who behind this panic just really think it through. What's the CCP means to the United States? Do we, really want to take them because it's already been proven over the several decades, right? How you try to treat the CCP well and hoping they can change.
And hope they're going to treat you well back.
It won't happen.
They don't. You only feed them. Be strong. Be strong with them. All right, okay. The next topic, let's move into Kathy's reporting of the flash mob issue. Okay, we're not done yet. It's still, the rippling wave is still through the country, and people was just watching in disbelief. What is happening to our shopping mall in our country here? So, Kathy, what's the news scoop?
Yeah, so I think people. We talked about what happened, why. This flash mob robbery in the United States is on the rise, and what are the main reasons. And then, people care about how to address this issue. And in relate to that, it has been talking about justice system reform and what does that have to do with what's happening right now? Again, I interviewed Dr. Reed Hayes, who is a research scientist and a criminologist in the University of Florida, and also Lieutenant Tracy McCry, the head of the robbery detail unit in San Francisco Police Department. So first, an update. Actually, it's sad news in the San Francisco Bay Area. It happened again. It's a third gunpoint threat of media crew in the past 2.5 weeks. What happened was on Saturday, this Saturday, December 11th, an NBC Sports crew working on the assignment in Oakland, California, which is just across the bridge from here in San Francisco, and was robbed at a gunpoint. And the robbers got away with a camera from the crew's vehicle. According to Oakland Police Department spokesperson, no one was injured during the robbery, fortunately. And this robbery is reportedly the third involving news organizations in Oakland within 2.5 weeks' time. On December 3rd, a San Francisco Chronicle, a local newspaper, photographer was held up in an armed robbery. And before that, it's a national news that a security guard, who is a former police officer for local news station Crown TV, was shot and killed during an attempt robbery. So, it's just. So I asked Dr. Reed Hayes, is this like normal or unprecedented? And he's just saying, in his 30 years as a criminology, it's just so unprecedented.
Well, I mean, we did used to see it, of course, during reporting from war zones, right, in Afghanistan or Iraq, for example, or Vietnam. But now, like you say, we are starting to see it domestically. I'm sure any of us could Google and then click the news button for assaults on news people in the field during the reporting in the United States. But what's going on in the Bay Area seems a little unprecedented for a multitude of reasons. I'm sure the Bay Area seems to be generating some unique crime dynamics.
Yeah, so actually, I myself, when I was covering the news at San Francisco Union Square, Louis Vuitton robbery, it's actually another TV station. It's a Fox, local Fox, and the cameraman personally told me that during the past couple of years, he personally was robbed, and one time was at gunpoint, and he said within like 10 seconds, what he carried like about worth of $150,000 equipment was gone.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, so he just told me that. So definitely it's not just like single incidents or things like that. So this kind of leads to the justice system reform, because especially in California, people have been talking about like less crowded prisons and low bail or no bail. Right? It really changed a lot of laws. And so what's happening right now? What does it speak to this justice system reform? So we discussed this issue, but Dr. Hayes said, first let's examine how the criminals and the offenders are thinking, because, we need to know what they think, right? And they, in his research, they talk to hundreds of the offenders and criminals every year.
Most of them have been caught before. So they're pretty aware of what may or may not happen and how quickly and how serious it is. So we talk about the certainty of being caught and punished is the most important. The next one might be the swiftness of the process, the celerity, how long does it take between getting caught and actually being sanctioned, if you are, and we said it's certain, if it's certain you are. And then finally, the severity of that sanction. is it enough to inconvenience you or to take you out of circulation where you can't harm others? And so there's all this debate about incarceration, and mass incarceration follows mass victimization. So, normally we're not incarcerated unless we do victimize.